We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Hey Amid Beis Meseches Shevuos. This is Shevuos Daf 35b. On the previous Amid, the Mishnah said that if a person administers the oath by Shevuos HaEdus using the names of Hashem like Rachum and Chanun, descriptions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is effective in creating a liability in terms of Shevuos HaEdus. And the Gemara asked on the previous Amid from a Brisa, because when it comes to the names of Hashem that a person is not allowed to erase, it's only the actual names of Hashem, but in terms of Rachum, Chanun, descriptions of the attributes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, those actually can be erased, and so why is that considered to be effective in terms of liability for Shevuos HaEdus? And Abaye in the previous Amud answered that when you say Rachum and Chanun, it's B'mishu Chanun, it's the one who is Chanun, it's a clear reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'mishu Rachum Kamar. What he means to say is Mishu Rachum, the one who is Rachum. Rashi explains, B'mishu Chanun V'lavda Chanun Shemhu. Our Mishnah is not saying that Chanun is a name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it's not. Ela B'shem Mishu Chanun, but the oath is being taken in the name of the one who is Chanun, and so it's a clear reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All you need is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the Shevuot, you do not need more than that to create the liability. But the Gemara continues, Amarle Rava, Rava said to him, he said to Abaye, Ihachi, if so, if that's the explanation of the Mishnah, so Bashamayim Uvaretz Nami, so in the Mishnah had a case of Bashamayim Uvaretz, which was not effective to create liability, but we should say that Bashamayim Uvaretz also there should be liability, because it means the same thing. B'misha Shamayim Uvaretz Shelo Kamar, he's saying the one to whom the Shamayim and Aretz belong. But the Gemara says, Hachi Hashta, what kind of comparison is it between the two? Hasam over there, Kevan Deleka Midi Achrina de Ikri Rachum V'Chanon, since nothing else is called Rachum V'Chanon, Vadai it is certain, B'mishu Chanon, Vadai B'mishu Rachum Kamar, it is certain that he's talking about the one who is Chanon, it is certain that he's talking about the one who is Rachum. That's what the person is saying. But over here, when we're talking about Shamayim V'Oretz, Kevon De'ika Shamayim V'Oretz, since there's such a thing as the heavens and the earth, Bashamayim V'Oretz Kamar, so he really is saying Bashamayim V'Oretz, and that would not be effective in terms of a Shevuot to create that liability for Shevuos HaEdus. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Kasav Aleph Lamed Me Elokim. Let's say the person just writes the Aleph and the Lamed from the word Elokim, or the Yud and the Hey, Me Yud Kei Vav Kei. He writes the Yud and the Hey from Yud Kei Vav Kei. Hareze Eino Nimchak. So that cannot be erased. That's still considered to be the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rashi explains, Kasav Aleph Lamed Me Elokim Shehischil Lichtov Elokim. The case over here is, he began to write the word Elokim, that was his intention. V'chasav Aleph Lamed, and he wrote the Aleph and Lamed, Ein Nimchak, and it cannot be erased. Even though he didn't finish the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Sharei Beis Osios Halalu Shem Liatzmo, because these two letters are considered a shame independently, and that's why Eino Nimchak, that's why they cannot be erased. Shin Dalid Mishakai, let's say he writes the Shin and the Dalid from Shakai. Aleph Dalid Me Hashem, he writes the Aleph Dalid from the Aleph Dalid Nun Yud, name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Or Tzadi Beis Mitzavokos, let's say he writes the Tzadi and the Beis from Tzavokos. Hareza Nimchak, so that could be erased. Rabbi Yossi says, Tzavakos kulo nimchak. Actually, the word Tzavakos can be erased entirely. It's actually not a name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shelo nikra Tzavakos ela al Shem Yisrael. He's only referred to as Tzavakos. It's really a reference to Klal Yisrael. Shenemar, as it says in the Pasuk, V'hotzesi es Tzivosai es Ami b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. So there the word Tzivosai is actually a reference to b'nei Yisrael. The Gemara continues, Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Ein halacha Rabbi Yossi. The halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi. Again, Rabbi Yossi saying Tzavakos can be erased. The halacha is not like that. The Gemara continues, Tana Rabban, and the rabbis taught, Kol hatafel l'shem, anything that is subordinate to the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, means to say if you have a prefix or a suffix, vein milafanav uvein milacharav, whether it's before, whether it's after, harez and nimchak, that is allowed to be erased. The Bryce explains, Lafanav Ketzad, what would be an example of before? For example, La Hashem, Lamed Nimchak, Ba Hashem, Beis Nimchak, Va Hashem, Vav Nimchak, Me Hashem, Mem Nimchak, She Hashem, Shin Nimchak, Hashem, Hey Nimchak. All of these cases, let's say La Hashem, the Lamed can be erased, Ba Hashem, the Beis can be erased, Va Hashem, the Vav, Me Hashem, the Mem, She Hashem, the Shin, and if you have the Hey before Hashem's name, the Hey can be erased. Ka Hashem, Chof Nimchak, if you have Ka Hashem, the Kof can be erased. And Liacharav Ketzad were examples of, let's say, suffixes. Elokeinu, in the word Elokeinu, Nun Vav Nimchak, the Nun and the Vav can be erased. Elokehem, Hey Mem Nimchak, the Hey Mem at the end can be erased. Elokechem, Chof Mem, the Chof Mem at the end, Nimchak can be erased. And the Brisa continues, Acherim Omrim, others say, Liacharav Eino Nimchak, actually the suffixes cannot be erased. Shekvar Kidshu Hashem, because they're already sanctified, since they're coming after the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're already sanctified by the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amar Ravuna says, Halacha ke'acherim, the halacha is like the acherim. And the Gemara continues, Kol Shevuos Amurim B'Torah Avram. Anytime the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is said by Avram Avinu, it's always Kodesh, it's always considered to be holy, it's always a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chutz mizeh shu chol, except for the following, which is actually chol, it's actually not considered to be a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shenemar, as it says, Vayomer Hashem imna matzasi chein beinecha, so it's not actually Hashem over there. Actually, the reference over there, the pasuk is Vayomar Adonai imna matzasi chein beinecha. It is not a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in that case. Rashi explains, Chutz mizeh l'malochim tzoi. This was when Avram was with the angel, so he was referencing the middle angel, Kara Adon. He's calling on the master. Shekach bo lefanav Michael b'emtzo, Gavriel mimino, Rafal mismolo. Michael was in the middle, so it was directed again towards the Malach over there, and that's why in that case it's not Kodesh, it's not a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's actually Chol, it's a reference to the Malach. And the Gemara continues, Chanina ben Achi Rabbi Yoshua, Chanina the son of the brother of Rabbi Yoshua, Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah, Mishum Rabbi Lozer Hamodoi, and Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah in the name of Rabbi Lozer Hamodoi, Amru, they both say, Afzeh Kodesh, this pasuk also, where it says, Imnam matzasi chein beinecha, that's also Kodesh, it's a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara says, Keman oz lahad amar Rav Yehuda amar Rav, who does it follow the statement of Rav Yehuda amar Rav, that Rav Yehuda says, that Rav says, Gedola hachnas orchen yoser me'akbolas pnei shchina, it says that hachnas orchen is greater than receiving the shchina. Keman, who does that follow? Who does that statement of Rav follow? Ka'oso hazug. It follows that pair. It follows the opinion of Chanina ben Achi Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Lozer ben Azariah mishum Rabbi Lozer hamodoi. Rashi explains, Af ze Kodesh, this is also Kodesh. Techsiv le'el minei vayeru elav Hashem v'hadar ksiv hinei shlosha anashim. It says the three men, the three malachim were coming, and the idea is v'amar la'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in this interpretation, that it's Kodesh. It's Avram saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Al nos Avram el avdecha hamtenli. Avram is saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, wait for me. Khan, wait for me over here, ad sha'achnes ha'orchen, until I do the mitzvah of achnasas orchen. And again, that's how we see that achnasas orchen is greater than kabolas pnei shchina. And the Gemara continues, Kol Shevuos Amurim below, to all of the names that are said by lo, it's chol, they are all chol, they are not references to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chutz mizeh shu kodesh, except for the following pasuk, which is kodesh. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, Vayomer lot aleim, and Lot said to them, Al no Hashem, we're interpreting this as referring actually to Hashem, it's kodesh. Hinei no motza avdecha chein beinecha, and how do we know it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Because it's misha yesh biyado lahames ulahachios, it's a reference to the one who has the ability to bring death and to bring life. And Zeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rashi explains, Misha yesh biyado v'hachi kamer, this is how you understand the pasuk. Vayomer lot aleim biyozneim, Lot said to them in their ears, Al no yihichein, it shouldn't be like this. V'chazar klape Hashem, but then Lot turns towards Hashem, v'yomar lo, and he says, Hashem, hinei no motza avdecha, so again, that is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In that case, it is Kodesh. And the Gemara continues, Kol Shevuos Amurim ben Navos, all of the names that are said by Navos, this is by the story of Navos with Achav and Izevel, and the situation over there was they accused Navos of blasphemy. So all of those names are Kodesh, they're all Kodesh, and B'micha, and the names that are by Micha, that's by the Pesel Micha and Sefer Shoftim, Chol, those are all Chol, they're references to the idol, they're not references to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Eliezer says, Ben Navos Kodesh, indeed by Navos it is Kodesh. Again, they were accusing him of blasphemy, so it's talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But B'micha, but when it comes to Micha, Yesh Mehen Chol, V'yesh Mehen Kodesh, some are Chol, and some are Kodesh, some are not references to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and some are. And the way to understand it is as follows, Aleph Lamed, anytime it uses Aleph Lamed, like in Elokim, Chol, that's Chol, that is not a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but Yud Hey, but if it says it as a Yud Hey, so then Kodesh, that's a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chutz mizeh, except for the following, Sha'aleph Lamed V'hu Kodesh, where it actually is Aleph Lamed, but it is Kodesh, it is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says, Kol Yemei Hayos Beis Ho Elokim B'Shilo, and that's a reference to the Beis Ho Elokim B'Shilo, that's a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara continues, Kol Shevuos Hamurim Begivas Binyamin, all of the names that are by Givas Binyamin, that's when the tribes, when the Shvatim were determining whether to wage war against Binyamin. So when it comes to that, Rabbi Eliezer Omer Chol, Rabbi Eliezer says all of those names are Chol, it's not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Yoshua Omer Kodesh, Rabbi Yehuda says it's Kodesh, it is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amar lo Rabbi Eliezer said to him, V'chi mavtiach ve'eno osa, how can you say it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu? But over here there was a guarantee. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said go to war, and then they ended up losing those first battles. So is that possible that that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Amar lo Rabbi Yoshua said to him, Ma'ashiv tiach asa. Actually, whatever was guaranteed is what happened. V'heim lo bichnu im linitzoach im linatseach. In the first cases, in the first battles, they didn't ask the Urim V'Tumim whether they'd be successful or not. But but in the last battle, Shebichnu, where they did ask, they wanted to know whether they would be successful. So then Hiskimu al Yodon, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu agreed and said they would be successful, and that actually came to fruition. And so that's why, again, it is actually a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron omed lefana bayamim ahem leimor ha'osif od lotzeis lamelchama im b'ni binyamin achi im echtal. By saying, should I continue, should I stop, that's already asking whether they will be victorious or not. And so again, they did get an answer then, and that answer was accurate, that they were in fact victorious. And the Gemara continues, Kol Shlomo ha'amur b'shir hashirim. Anytime it says the word Shlomo and Shir Hashirim, Kodesh, that's Kodesh, it's a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because it means Shir L'mi Sha'ashalom Shalo. It means a song for the one who peace is with him. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chutz mizeh, with the exception of the following, where it says, Karmi Shali Lefonai, it says in the Pasuk, Karmi Shali Lefonai ha'elef l'cha Shlomo. And what that means to say is, Shlomo l'didei, Shlomo takes for himself 1,000, umasayim l'not, and then there are 200 who are guarding his fruits. That actually is a reference to the Rabbanan. The idea is that 1/6 should be used for learning Torah, not necessarily all of the people should be taken as soldiers. And Rashi explains, Umasayim l'nochim l'Rabbanan hinichem, he set them aside to be scholars, v'yasku b'Torah, they should learn Torah. That's echad mishisha shebehem, that's 1/6 of them should learn Torah. And so therefore, again, when it says Shlomo in that pasuk, the reference there actually is to Shlomo. It's not a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara continues, V'yeshom, but others say, Af zechol. Also, the following pasuk is chol. It's also not a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When it says, Hinei mitaso shel Shlomo shishim, when it says that pasuk, that's referring to Shlomo. The Gemara now says, Af zeh. So one second, if it says even this is chol, so v'lomi boyhech, it's like we don't even need to say the first case is for sure chol. So it sounds like everyone agrees that the pasuk of Karmi shali lefonai ha'elef l'cha Shlomo, it sounds like everyone agrees that in that situation it's chol, but that doesn't make sense. What about the statement that Shmuel said, Malchusa dekot l'chad mishisa bi'alma lo mi'ansha, that if you have a government that kills 1/6 of the people, so it's not going to be punished. Shenemar, as it says, Karmi shali lefonai ha'elef l'cha Shlomo le'malchusa derakia, it says 1,000, and Shlomo here is a reference to the malchusa derakia, that's the kingdom of heaven. Umasayim lenotrim espirio, and then 200 lenotrim espirio le'malchusa diara, that's a reference to the earthly kingdom. And so the point over here is that the word Shlomo, according to what Shmuel is saying, is a reference to the Malchusa Derakia. So apparently Shmuel is holding that it's a reference, it's Kodesh, it's a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Shmuel lo Tanakama v'lo ki Yeshomrim. According to that, Shmuel is not going like the Tanakama or the Yeshomrim, because everybody agrees it's Chol, but Shmuel seems to disagree with both the Tanakama and the Yeshomrim. And so the Gemara says, Ella rather Hachi Kamar, you're right. What it really means to say is not Af Zechol, it should be V'Yeshomrim Ze Kodesh V'Zehu Chol Mitaso. Really, it means that the Yeshomrim are arguing. They're saying that the first pasuk it's Kodesh, and then the second pasuk of Hinei Mitaso Shel Shlomo, that's the one that's Chol. Ushmuel Diamar Ki Yeshomrim, and according to this, Shmuel is going to follow the Yeshomrim. So again, it is a machlokas among the Tanoim, and Shmuel is following the Yeshomrim in that situation. And Rashi explains Hinei Mitaso. First of all, in the case of Hinei Mitaso, that's Chol Shahaya Nivas Me Ashmedai. That was a story where Shlomo was afraid of Ashmedai. Kedamar Meseches Gittin. That's a story Meseches Gittin. And then the Gemara said the Shmuel statement, let's say the king, he needs to use people to work for him, and 1/6 of the people are killed, so that's going to be okay. And again, they bring this pasuk of the Malchusa Dishmaya and the Malchusa Diara. And the idea again is, according to Shmuel, that of the 1,200 mentioned in the pasuk, so 200 of them are the prerogative, so to speak, of the earthly monarch, of the earthly king. And so again, in any case, the word Shlomo over there is a reference to the Malchus Derakia. It's a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and so again the Gemara said that Shmuel is following the Yesh Omrim. And the Gemara continues, Kol Malchayu ha'amurim b'Daniel. Anytime it says Melech, it references a king, and Sefer Daniel, Chol, it is Chol. It is not a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chutz mizeshu Kodesh, with the exception of the following, which is Kodesh, which is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The pasuk says, Ant Malka Melech Malchaya, Di'alo Shemayim Malchusa Chisna V'Sakfa V'Ikari Yahavlach. So there it is a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'yesh Omrim, and some say Af Zeh Kodesh, even the following one is Kodesh. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, Mori Chelmo L'Sanach U'Pishra Li'Yorach. Now over there the pasuk means to say that your dream, it should be for your enemies. It's a bad dream, and therefore it should be upon your enemies. Now Leman Kamar, now who's he speaking to over here? Isal Kadaydach L'Nebuchadnezzar Kamar Le. If you think that he's talking to Nebuchadnezzar, Sinu say Maininu. So who's the enemies of Nebuchadnezzar? Yisrael. That would mean he's referencing Klal Yisrael, that they should be the ones to receive this bad dream, so to speak. So Meilit Kalayit Lahuli Yisrael, do you think that he's cursing Klal Yisrael? That cannot be. So it must be that it's Kodesh, it must be a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's talking about the enemies of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Gemara says V'Tanakama, now the Tanakama again understands that this actually is Chol, so it's a reference to Nebuchadnezzar, so who are the enemies over here? V'Tanakama Savar Sone Yisrael Ika Sone Ovdei Kochavim Leka, the Tanakama holds, do you think that there are only Sone Yisrael? There's only enemies who are Jewish of Nebuchadnezzar, and he had no enemies who were Ovdei Kochavim, he had other enemies as well, and so therefore those are the enemies that are being referenced over here. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Uvechol kinuyin hareilu chayavin, with all of the kinuyin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name, they are liable when it comes to Shevuos HaEdus. It does not have to be the Shem HaMiyuchad by Shevuos HaEdus for liability. And the Gemara says, Uramini, we have a contradiction from the following Brisa. The Brisa brings the pasuk by Sota, Yitin Hashem osach la'olah v'l'shvu Hashem will give you over for a curse and an oath. Ma Talmud lomar, why does the pasuk say la'olah v'l'shvu over here? V'alo kvar nemar, but it already says in the pasuk, v'yishbiya ha'kohen eso isha b'shvu asa'olah. It says that the Kohen, he gives the woman the oath of the curse, and so therefore it doesn't need to be repeated. And the Brisa continues and says, L'fi shenemar v'shama kol olah. The reason why it says that is because it says, by Shevuos HaEdus, it says v'shama kol olah. It mentions the curse, nemar kan olah v'nemar lahalan olah. It says over here olah, it says over there olah. Ma kan shavua, just like over here it refers to an oath. Af lahalan shavua, so too over there it refers to an oath. And ma kan b'shem, just like over here it's with the shem hamiyuchad. Af kan b'shem, so too over here it's with the shem hamiyuchad. In other words, the Brisa over here is saying that we learn out from Sota that the Allah that is mentioned by Shevuos HaEdus, that refers to a Shvuah, it refers to an oath, and we also learn out that just like by Sota it's the Shem HaMiyuchad, so too when it comes to Shevuos HaEdus it's the Shem HaMiyuchad. And so you see from this Brisa, not like our Mishnah said by the Kinuyin can create liability by Shevuos HaEdus, and here from this Brisa it seems that you need the actual Shem HaMiyuchad. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Abai says, Lokash, it's not difficult. Harabi Chanina Baridi, Harabonan. The Brisa that we just quoted is following Rabbi Chanina Baridi. Our Mishnah is following the Rabbonan. Titania, as we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Chanina Baridi Omer, Rabbi Chanina Baridi says, Hoel v'amra Torah hishava v'yal tishava, since the Torah says in some places to take a Shevuah, some places not to take a Shevuah, Kalil, some places it says curse, v'yal Kalil, some places it says not to curse. We'll see Rashi in a moment. Ma hishava b'shem, so just like the Shevuah is with the Shem HaMiyuchad, aflos hishava b'shem, so too when it says not to take a Shevuah, that's with the Shem HaMiyuchad. Ma Kalil b'shem, and just like the curse is with the Shem HaMiyuchad, aflosakal b'shem, so to not to curse is with the Shem HaMiyuchad. And the point over here is that you see Rabbi Chanina Bar Idi requires the Shem HaMiyuchad, and that's also the Brisa above is also following Rabbi Chanina Bar Idi. And Rashi explains, V'halo kvar nemar b'shvuas ha'olah, doesn't it already say b'shvuas ha'olah, and so therefore why does it have to repeat it by Sota? Mehacha mashma to have v'la'olah v'l'shvuah. From here already it's mashma, it implies that she should be for a curse and an oath. V'sulo havele l'michta v'l'yiten Hashem es yirechech nofeles. It should have just said yiten Hashem es yirechech nofeles. It doesn't have to mention the oath and the curse again, and so therefore we learn out malahalo neshvuah dichsiv v'hishbiya, just like over here it's shvuah, again they change the gears to takan, makan shvuah, just like over here it is a Shevuah, so too when it comes to Shevuos HaEidus, it's actually referring to a Shevuah. Uma kan b'shem, and just like over here, it's talking with the Shem HaMiyuchad, Tichsev Yitin Hashem, like it says again by Sota Yitin Hashem, so too when it comes to Shevuos HaEidus, we're talking about the Shem HaMiyuchad. And the Gemara then brought the Baraisa with Rav Chanina Baridi. It says Hishav, it says take a Shevuah. That's by Shevuos Hashem Tiyah. There's times when the parties have to take a Shevuah, like it says Shevuos Hashem Tiyah. And Vial Tishav, it also says don't swear. For example, Lo Sishavu B'Shmil HaShoker. It says a person shouldn't swear in my name falsely. And Kilel, sometimes it says Kalel, to curse. Yitin Hashem Osach La'Allah. For example, it says that by Sota, Hashem should give you as a curse. And Lo Sekalel, it sometimes says not to curse. Bein Kilas Hashem, like it says not to curse Hashem. Bein Kilas Chaveiro, Lo Sekal Cheresh. Also it says not to curse one's friend, like it says Lo Sekal Cheresh. And so we learn out Mahi Shava B'Shem, just like when it says that you take the Shevuah. For example, Shevuos Hashem Tiyah. So that's talking about with the Shem HaMiyuchad. So too again when it says not, so too when it says Al Tishava, the same idea. It means to say with the Shem HaMiyuchad, that would apply by Shevuos HaEidus as well. Ubrais Rabbi Chanina, and so therefore again the Brais is Rabbi Chanina, Umasnis and Rabbanan. And the Mishnah is going to be following the Rabbanan, that the Kinuyin are enough for liability when it comes to Shevuos HaEidus. But the Gemara continues v'Rabbanan, but according to the Rabbanan who argue with Rabbi Chanina Baridi, igemiri gzeira shava, if they learn the gzeira shava above, that's the gzeira shava in this first brisa, learning from Sota to Shevuos HaEidus, if they learn that gzeira shava, so niboy shem hamiyuchad, so they should also require the shem hamiyuchad, just like Rabbi Chanina Baridi, because again that brisa learned from Sota that the shem hamiyuchad is required by Shevuos HaEidus, and ilo gemiri gzeira shava, if they don't learn that gzeira shava from Sota, so Allah deshvuah himinalu, so where do they learn out that the word Allah that it says by Shevuos HaEidus that refers to an oath, because again that also was learned from Sota, that the word Allah by Shevuos HaEidus is referring to an oath. And so the Gemara answers to that, Nafka Lahu Midatanya, they learned that out from the following brisa. It says Allah, again it says Allah in the pasuk, Ein Allah ela lashon Shevuah. The word Allah is a language of Shevuah, it's a language of an oath. V'chein hu omer, and similarly it says, V'yishbiya hakohen eso isha, b'Shevuas ha'Allah, it says that the kohen administers the oath, b'Shevuas ha'Allah, and so therefore you see that when it says Allah, it refers to a Shevuah. And Rashi explains, the Shevuah minalahu, again, how do they know that an Allah is a Shevuah? V'shama kol Allah, when it says V'shama kol Allah by Shevuos HaEidus, minalahu de b'Shevuah mishtoy, how do we know that that's talking about an oath? And so the Gemara said, Nafkalu midatanya, they learn it from the following brisa, Migufe demashmos dekra, from the simple understanding of the pasuk, Hachi mashma, it sounds like it's saying that it's Shevuos Allah, that the word Allah is referring to an oath. But the Gemara says, Hasam over there, Shevuos ha'Allah ksiv, it says an oath of a curse. And so therefore, how do you know that it would even be just a regular oath? When it says Allah by Shevuos HaEidus, it does not have to involve a curse, it could just be a regular oath. And so the Gemara says, Hachi kamar, this is what the Braisa means to say. Allah, again, it says in the pasuk, Allah, ein Allah ella b'Shevuah. The word Allah is always with an oath, so we know that there's certainly going to be an oath. The question is, can it just be an oath, or does it have to have a curse as well? V'cheinu omer, and again the Braisa continues and says, similarly it says, V'yishbiya hakohen eso isha b'Shevuas ha'Allah, so we know that an Allah goes along with an oath. Rashi explains, V'cheinu omer alma Allah hi Shevuah. Again, we see that Allah is Shevuah, parchinan hasam, and then we ask, Hasam Shevuas ha'Allah ksiv, and then we ask that over there, it says Shevuas ha'Allah. Shevuah shehi beklala, which would sound like an oath that's with a curse. Avol Shevuah she'ena beklala, but let's say an oath without a curse, lo mishtama mehacha, that we don't know from here, that the Gemara will discuss on the next Amud. We will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph.